Hey guys, welcome to your pick a card video. So today I've got 3 different decks for you, and as you can probably already tell from the title of the video, this reading is going to be about what is it time to change? I feel like we're always going through different transitions in our lifetime, and so this one will kind of let you in on what transitions may have already been happening, or transitions that are about to happen for you, or just kind of like what changes you need to work on. I haven't shuffled any of the cards yet. I kind of just want to see where each of the readings take us, so this will be a little bit more intuitive, but I think it'll be kind of fun for us. I will be using all 3 of these decks in the reading, so don't let the particular backings fool you. Just let each of these piles represent the first reading that I do, the second reading that I'm going to do, and the third reading that I will be doing, and feel which pile or piles you feel called to. Sometimes there will be little bits of a message for you in one reading and a little bit of a message for you in a different reading. So go ahead and use your intuition when it comes to this. Multiple people hopefully will be watching this video, so different messages will resonate for different people and at different times too. Depending on when you watch this video, you may pick a different pile or a different message may resonate with you. So we're going to go ahead and get started with pile 1 here. Pile 1, welcome. So we're going to go ahead and start shuffling and get started. So what is it that pile 1 is ready for a change for? What is it that they can start working towards, or what is it that's already happening in their life? Go ahead and cut this. Alright, so you guys have the 10 of Swords in reverse, the Sun also in reverse, Knight of Pentacles upright, and the 6 of Pentacles in reverse. Oh, the 10 of Swords is upright, excuse me. Sorry, this deck is a pips deck, so it is a little hard for me to tell, but I do like to read reversals because I do think those have additional meaning. So 10 of Swords upright, Sun card in reverse, Knight of Pentacles upright, 6 of Pentacles in reverse, and then the Emperor also upright. The card on the bottom of the deck, which I think you can see over here a little better, is the Judgment card in reverse. So I'm going to talk about the card on the bottom of the deck first, the Judgment card in reverse. So Judgment, when it's upright, is all about kind of like the closings of a cycle. Ultimately, it's like the scene in the traditional deck is a scene from the Book of Revelation. So that's kind of like the end of the world, the whole big chapter cycle is closing, the world is ending, and then the world card's right after in the order of the major arcana. So I kind of love that. I think it's kind of like very fitting, obviously, in its story. So with the Judgment card being in reverse, to me, that's saying that it's like there's kind of like some like cycle in your life that's trying to end, or kind of like like something that kind of like needs judgment passed on it almost, for it to kind of like feel like complete and wrapped up. It's kind of like those accolades or rewards. It's kind of almost like recognition. So with the Judgment card being in reverse, kind of what I'm feeling is the like seed of this change that is trying to be inspired or is already happening for you is kind of like due to a lack of recognition in some area. And that makes a lot of sense with the 10 of Swords being upright right next to it, because the 10 of Swords is all about kind of like our own mental, just kind of like self getting the best of us. The card that comes before the 10 of Swords is the 9 of Swords, which is all about just like our personal fears, negative self-talk, and bad habits. I guess not bad habits, that's the Devil card, but it came out for a reason maybe for some people. But it's like just kind of like our mind being really mean to us, and then the like 10 of Swords right after is usually somebody who's like fully collapsed with their face down in the water, in the traditional Smith-Waite deck, which is the one that I usually like to go off of. And so it's kind of like this feeling of like, because our mind was so mean to us, it got the best of us and kind of like caused this defeatedness. And so because you maybe didn't get the recognition, sorry about my chair there, because you didn't get the recognition that you kind of needed, it's almost like you felt like you weren't good enough, and so it's like your mind kind of got the better of you in this. And so because your mind was being a little mean to you, it's like you're kind of dampening the sun energy here. And so the sun being a major arcana card too, and the sun actually comes right before the judgment card. This is 19 and this is number 20, so the like succession kind of amplifies their energy. The sun card, again, sorry about my chair. My chair is a little creaky, so if you hear that throughout the reading, that's just what it is. The sun card, when it's upright, is all about kind of like this full embodiment of self-expression, where it's like it's like a sunflower, you know, it was like given all of the nutrients and things needed it's like you know, it had everything it needed in order to grow really big and strong, and so it was able to develop a healthy root system, and because of that it was able to grow into its fullest and shine its brightest. With it being in reverse here, it's kind of like you don't feel like you're able to shine your brightest because, you know, you didn't get one of the nutrients that you needed here with that recognition. Not that it's like you can blame all of this on like, oh, just because you did this or like didn't get this means you will never do this. Like, that's not what I'm saying, and I hope that's not what anybody is hearing or how it comes across. But particularly, it's like with this being here, it's like your own mind is also kind of like limiting you from being able to like see yourself as this full expression of self. It's like, I think you definitely like are like doing this is kind of like what I'm feeling from this reading. So it's like you are, you know, no matter what, you can't be anyone other than yourself, you know. It's like we can still make choices to try to like replicate and, you know, be like other people, but that's still kind of like us choosing to do that, if that makes sense. And you know, recognition I think is a very valid nutrient. It's like, you know, it's like in a lot of esotericism you kind of see like the big eye everywhere, not just like the evil eye or like the evil eye protection thing, but it's like, you know, it's like the eye on the top of the dollar bill, and like I don't know, I've got a sticker with an eye. I feel like just like in general, there's a lot of like eye stuff in like, you know, third eye, all of that. There's like this emphasis on kind of like seeing. It's like seeing the unseen, or just like seeing in general. It's like you can't be aware of something unless you can see something. I think that's kind of like what awareness is just being able to kind of recognize what's happening, either as it's happening or even after the fact. You know, we can grow in awareness after the fact, but I do think it's like, you know, we have this innate desire to like see others and be seen. It's like we want to be seen as our like true authentic selves, and like we want to be celebrated, you know? It's like sometimes we do need recognition, and we need kind of like support to encourage us to continue to be our full authentic selves. And so I do think that is excuse me. I do think that is a valid nutrient that kind of like, I don't know, the flower of you is needing. And so, you know, like anything, we can always ask our guides for any support that we need. Sometimes it feels a little foolish to be like, hey guides, like I need encouragement, or I need, you know, what was the word that I say? Recognition. It's like, I need someone to recognize me. And it's like, we can ask for these things all the time, and as soon as we do ask for them, our guides are so happy to help work with us on those things. But sometimes it can feel a bit silly to ask for that. But it's like, you know, sometimes I think it's like, it is a need, and it is something that, you know, obviously has caused this effect, and that's the thing that is limiting your ability to grow. Now, I do think that can enter into the territory of like needing excessive validation, but I do think a little bit of validation can be nice sometimes. Not always necessary. You can always muster up the courage and plow through it, as we sometimes need to do, but particularly for you guys, because we're talking about kind of like what change is needed here. It's like, I kind of feel like you guys may need just a little bit more encouragement in your environment, and you can maybe even ask your friends to be a little bit more encouraging to you, or you can do even some like self-encouragement, where it's like writing positive affirmations, or like even just you looking at your work, your artwork, or your tarot videos, or like anything else like that, and kind of just being like, you know what, no, it's like I am satisfied with this. Like even if somebody else isn't going to give me the recognition, like I recognize me, you know? And that's sometimes not quite as satisfying, I get that, but I think when we practice self-love in any form, usually that returns in external love because we receive the love that we are ready to receive. I think we can all, you know, we've all had moments where it's like, you know, someone has been trying to compliment us or just kind of show us love in other ways, like maybe it was like a gift or something, but it's like because we weren't quite ready to receive it, or wasn't quite exactly what we wanted or wanted to hear, you know, we didn't accept that form of love that they were trying to give us. So yeah, that's the Sun card in reverse. So the next one here is the Knight of Pentacles upright. So as we're talking about change, what can you do to get out of that? And then kind of after you go through this kind of like, you know, like peak of the transition here, this is how it'll kind of unfold afterwards. So Knight of Pentacles is all about moving forward courageously with things in the physical realm. So for a lot of the people here, and especially with kind of like the Sun card, which to me is a little bit more of a kind of like artistic expression card, and this is a very artistic deck, coming all the way from Japan. This is a Japanese deck. Fun little fact about me, the tarot reader, I speak a little bit of Japanese. And yeah, this is my first Japanese deck that I've ever gotten. My husband got this for me for my birthday. So with the Knight of Pentacles, it's all about like moving forward with things that you want to do. And so, you know, for the people here, it's like, don't let your own self-doubt and fears hold you back. The reason I chuckled is because like that is such kind of cliche advice, I feel like, where it's like, oh, just don't let it. And it's not always that easy. And like, you know, I, the reader here, get that. We, your spirit guides, also get that. But I think sometimes we can like mentally get ourselves into such a rut that we just kind of like, you know, we want to do this thing. Our soul and our spirit is like urging us to do this thing. But because we like mentally feel so blocked towards it, we don't actually allow our like physical body to get up and move and do the thing that it is wanting to do. And so, sorry about my chair again. So for this card here, it's like in order to kind of get past this blockage here, I think you should just, not just, but I think you should do something. Whatever it is that you kind of feel, we'll say like not the most scared about, but whatever it is that kind of like creatively or self-expression centric you are trying to achieve, you know, but it's like there's that little voice that's like, no, I can't do that, that's too much work, or no, like people will think this of me. Like just allow yourself in some small way to like do it or try it and see what happens, you know, see if it is something that resonates with you. And if it is, you can kind of keep allowing yourself to do it and not holding yourself back. Or just as valid, you try it out and you recognize maybe one of those swords was correct and maybe it was a little too difficult. Not to discourage like learning a new skill or trying something new, but it's like sometimes stuff is just like, you know, it's not really for us, it doesn't quite resonate, and it's not quite as exciting as what we wanted it to be, which is fine. But at least then you have tried it, and then you have gotten that little acknowledgement of the self. You learned a little bit more about yourself through that experience, and then your mind can stop being mean to you because you tried the thing and you did it. Hooray! And a lot of times too, it's like when we do things, we find out that that voice that is being so negative is usually wrong. That's just our own like fear trying to keep us safe from, you know, it's like there's that thing in psychology I remember reading at some point or like hearing about where it's like since ancestral times, it's like we crave things that are familiar because it's like there's safety and familiarity, you know. It's like if we know which berry is edible but we don't know about that one, we're going to go with the berry that we know what to expect from, even though this one may be super awesome. I think we're kind of like blessed with our kind of like mental acuity that we are able to kind of work past some of these like fear-based barriers that kind of ultimately derive from our mind. But it's like, you know, we have a little bit more consciousness, a little bit more awareness, and a little bit more ability to act on these things because of, I don't know, just our general nature as humans. I don't know, got a little philosophical there, but you know, that's what wanted to come through. So, okay, that's the Knight of Pentacles. And then for the next card here, we've got the Six of Pentacles in reverse. So through this transition, you know, don't expect someone to kind of come in and just hand this thing to you on a silver platter. The Six of Pentacles, when it's upright, is all about kind of like, it's like, you know, in the story of the Pentacles, the Five of Pentacles is being in this state of loss. And it's like they're kind of like outside a church. It's kind of like being denied help, but to me it's like, you know, you're in a state of poverty, and then it's like for the story, it's like you go and you ask a higher source or your community, which is what the churches represented way back in the day, that, you know, then they actually did a lot of philanthropic work. It's like asking for help, and then the Six of Pentacles is receiving that help. It's like somebody kind of at a higher vantage point and giving to the people beneath them who are kind of like begging almost. And there's like a scale in his hand, so it's showing kind of like balance being restored by the people who have, giving to the people in need. As you know, we should do as a society. We should always strive to help out our fellow neighbor, because that is actually the thing that sets us apart from the rest of, you know, kind of like the animal kingdom, is our ability to kind of like form communities and help support each other in the, like, I don't know, just specific ways that we can. And I feel like we've kind of gotten a little farther away from that in modernity, as my high school teacher used to say, and I would hate. Apologies for my chair again. So with it being in reverse here, again, it's kind of mirroring that. It's like, you know, you're not going to get, I think, the exact handout that you're asking for. Kind of the phrase that just popped into my head here is like, beggars can't be choosers. So like I said earlier, when you do ask your guides for help, or if you do decide to ask your guides for help, which I would recommend, you know, you can never, or it's, yeah, I don't know, it can never hurt. But if you do, like, you know, be open to whatever form that may come in for you. It may not be exactly what you were expecting. And also be open with your request as well. It's always best to ask for, like, I would like to feel more confident, or I would like to, I don't know, feel more financially stable, rather than like, I would like to get this job, or I would like this specific thing to happen. Because when you're a little bit more open, it gives the universe and your higher self a little bit more space to work, and sometimes they have a higher vantage point than we do, so they can see something that we maybe don't see quite at the moment. But okay, so for the last card for this particular deck, we've got the Emperor upright. So Major Arcana card, this is the only upright card of these. So definitely after you go through this transition, there is kind of like a stabilization that kind of happens with the Major Arcana. The Major Arcana signify the kind of soul aspect of ourselves, so that speaks of kind of like more harmony in the soul. Particularly the Emperor there, it's almost the reason I have the Japanese deck is I was a huge weeb in like middle and high school, but it's like, to me, his hair here kind of looks almost like, you know, when Goku's going Super Saiyan and he charges up and all of his like energy and stuff is making his hair stand up. It's like, to me, it's like this just speaks of centeredness. Not that you'll turn into Goku, although how awesome would that be, right? But it's like, you know, it's like this feeling at peace and like sitting in your own energy and like, you know, seeing your energy affect you in kind of like a cool, fun, positive way. And like being at peace with that, you know, it's like the Emperor is very stable and secure and in control of his kingdom. He's got the support of his Empress. So whether you have a partner in your life or just kind of like other people who can be supportive for you, you know, that can also help you go through this transition. And a lot of times when we talk to the people that are close to us, they can kind of help us see that sometimes that negative voice or those kind of like negative thoughts that we have been having were, you know, just mostly in our head, or they didn't quite have as much ground to stand on as we maybe thought that they did. So yeah, and the Emperor is all about stability in general, like I think I may have said. And so at the end of this, it's like, you know, by going through whatever change it is that you need to go through, it's like it does speak of stability at the end of that transition for you, which is super exciting, you know. It's like, I think it's like that will make you feel just more secure, at home, at peace in general. So don't let your fear talk you out of doing this. There is a lot of positivity at the end of this. So it's talking about moving away from this kind of like internal like self-doubt essentially into just kind of like moving through a state of action, and then through kind of of what I was picking up a little bit here with the Six of Pentacles in reverse was the Eight of Pentacles, so a little bit of like hard work and dedication will ultimately provide the stability here, but you can't get to this unless you actually do start to take action first. So let's see what else it has to say about that. And then after this one, I'll cut it. Okay. Alright, so we've got the Eight of Wands upright, Death card upright, Justice card in reverse, and then Chariot in reverse, and King of Wands upright. So, the Eight of Wands is all about kind of like this very fast-paced movement. This is I like the artwork on this one. This is the like Luna Ethereal Visions Tarot deck, which is one of my absolute favorites. Love it. The usual Rider-Waite version of this deck has kind of just like 8 wands kind of flying through the sky. And to me it signifies kind of like, it's like throwing like spears off of like a castle wall or something, where it's like kind of like once you do something, it's like that action is out there, you know? It's kind of like it takes on a form and like energy of its own kind of, and it will affect what it affects, you know? And then with this one particularly, it has a lot of this like, I don't know, like sense of personal forward movement. Like it's your choosing to take these actions and kind of like, I don't know, take them to where they're going to have their impact in the world. So I mentioned the Eight of Pentacles up here, so to me the Eight of Wands is kind of like encouraging that, but it's like the Eight of Pentacles is about kind of like this very steady, consistent, kind of like more physical work. With the Eight of Wands here, it's almost like letting these kind of like passions or just kind of like those little nudges that we get from time to time where it's like, man, I don't know why, but I just kind of like really want to do this thing. Like I just have this urge, you know? It's like letting those things kind of run wild, you know? It's like run with them. It's like take that idea or that urge and just kind of see where it wants to take you. So that to me is kind of mirroring that Nine of Pentacles. You can see they're both very like motion oriented cards. So the next card here is the Death card. So Death card is all about very strong personal transformation and change, which how appropriate for the reading, am I right? And I'm gonna move this one over here. Four of Swords in reverse. I'll talk about that one in a second. Okay. But so with Death being about this kind of like very intense personal change, particularly and again, sorry about my chair. It's such a like strong transformation that it's like essentially the version of us that we were before this change may as well be dead because we are such a different version of us. I like to explain this a lot in readings where it's kind of just like we are essentially such a different person from the 7-year-old version of us that, that 7-year-old version of us may as well be dead because we just are not them anymore. It's kind of like that type of transformation. Some people even get this when they go on vacation, so it's like they see other people just kind of like experiencing the world in such a drastically different way that they didn't know was possible before, that they just kind of like, I don't know, they just become different people afterwards. So for some people, if you've wanted to like, move somewhere or kind of like go visit a particular place, I think definitely this is your sign to go ahead and go for that. If that is you, if you've been wanting to take a vacation, let me know in the comments down below where you want to take that vacation. It'd be lit if someone wanted to go to Japan because of this deck, but anywhere is fine. Obviously, I'm super excited for you and just want to share in this with you. Okay, so very strong, kind of like, and also it's like as you go through this transformation, I think it's like you are going to change. That is kind of like besides the, I don't know, it's like almost like not even a like point almost, but it's a thing that I think they want me to address where it's like maybe if some people were fearing that it's like, oh, maybe if they do get into this, they won't be themselves anymore because of how intense of a change it will kind of like require them to make in order to do this thing. I think if that is the case, for those people, the message that I have is just to not fear it. It's like I personally think that one of the reasons why we choose to incarnate in our lifetimes in the way that we do, or kind of wherever we choose to incarnate, is to grow. You know, ultimately our soul has a lesson it wants to teach us, or a thing it wants to accomplish, or a skill it wants to learn. And it's like, in order to do that, we have to kind of like grow and evolve. And it's like, you know, our soul is following this urge, and so it's like we should follow our urges too, because that's kind of like why we choose to live life, is to experience these things. And so along with those experiences does come change, but that is not a bad thing. Change is not the end of the world, and change can be very, very good. And sometimes you accumulate enough change and you can turn it in for money at the Coinstar or whatever, I don't know. But you know, just to make light of it, because the death card can be kind of heavy sometimes. But okay, so we've got that. Okay. I think that kind of spoke for itself. The card on the bottom of the deck was the Four of Swords in reverse. So Four of Swords is all about kind of taking a moment to pause, mentally become a little bit more sound in order to make just like a sound decision moving forward. With it being in reverse, I feel like, you know, you guys have been a little stagnant with this, and so it's like kind of wanting you to move past this like thinking about it mentality into just taking action. And so with the card in the middle here, we've got the Justice card in reverse. So it's interesting that I mentioned the kind of like scales that are being held in the Six of Pentacles, and those were in reverse. And the Justice card scales are also in reverse. So something about this situation may feel a little bit unfair for some people. You know, the Justice card, obviously when it's in reverse, is speaking of an injustice. And so I felt compelled to look up the like justice thing in the book, even though I've read tarot for many, many years. I know what the cards mean. But one of the things that it says for the reversed in particular is lack of accountability. And so kind of with this, particularly with one of the things that we touched on earlier with the like Judgment card in reverse, and so kind of like not getting the recognition that you needed, I think that is kind of talking about this Justice card in reverse. Because again, it wasn't necessarily that you just kind of like were self-doubting in some way that kind of like put you into this situation, this change that you're going through. It was the injustice. It was the actions of somebody else. For a lot of people, this could be like parents in a situation, because I know a lot of people, you know, it's like self-worth starts early. So if like your parents weren't super supportive, it can be hard for you to feel, I don't know, like you are being supported enough kind of like later on in life. So the like your higher self and just kind of like the universe, source, spirit does want to acknowledge that there has been a little bit of injustice with this, but that's kind of almost why, or it's like almost even more important because of that you do kind of move through this, because we don't want to be in that kind of like victim mentality, and not even mentality, just kind of like victim stasis. It's like that, it's like you are suffering from the actions that someone else afflicted. Wouldn't it be so nice to heal from that and be able to do the things that you actually want to do and kind of make the situation, you know, it's not going to heal the justice of the situation, but it can be very loving to move past it and not let it have power over you anymore in the ways that it is that are kind of limiting you in the particular ways that it is. So the next card that we have here is another Major Arcana card that is also in reverse. So it's interesting again that so far the only upright Major Arcana is that Emperor card, and that's all about that security. So that may even be a thing that you're like seeking or ultimately wanting to move forward with, is achieving a greater sense of security and stability. That also makes a lot of sense with the King of Wands, the next card being after it. But so for the Chariot in reverse, you know, the Chariot is all about moving forward, kind of similar to the Eight of Wands, but this is a Major Arcana card, so it's kind of like a more major aspect. I said it earlier, I think I may have mentioned, where it's like the Major Arcanas in particular are connected to our kind of like soul aspect, so it's like, you know, that divine being and spark inside of us. The Chariot card is about kind of like moving forward. Particularly there's like the two different colored lines here which represent the different pillars of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn Temple. It's like a J and a B. I think it's like Jer something and Boaz. I always forget the J one. But anyways, it's like moving forward with intention. It's like with the like guidance of this kind of like holy temple, the Holy Spirit. You know, it's like, you know, I'm saying those terms, but it's like, you know, it's source, it's spirit. It's like the universe, the oneness, you know? It's like moving forward with that kind of guided direction, and to kind of like hone in a little bit more intently on that kind of soul, higher self kind of version of you that is trying to like move you. With it being in reverse here, it's kind of like, and to me this is mirroring back to the like Four of Swords in reverse. It's like, I feel like some of you may be trying to hone in too much on that, where it's like trying to find like the perfect ultimate path that you're supposed to be going on. And again, it's like, it's this like mental overworking that's preventing you from moving forward. It's like, I think it's like, you know, focus on the like physical day-to-day things that you can do, again, because the Knight of Pentacles is rooted in the like physical, whereas the soul is on this higher level. So it could even be saying that if you're wanting to make these kind of like larger, grander soul changes for yourself, you know, you feel like you need to do a little bit of self-work, or there's something that needs just a little bit of improvement, you can actually achieve that by getting, you know, doing something with your hands. So it's like doing something like a daily routine, or building a new skill, or like I don't know, just like it's like a daily habit or something. It's like by doing it consistently, and like by actually like doing it, making it be a thing that occupies your time of day, it's like that's the thing that will ultimately allow you to progress and move forward. Ooh, sorry, there's a little hair here. Okay. And so the last card for this deck is the King of Wands. And so again, that King of Wands is that kind of like, to me, a minor arcana version of the Emperor, as all of the kings are. To me, the King of Wands is kind of like the closest to the Emperor, because the like fire element in alchemy is like the pure upright triangle, which is the pure masculine energy, as opposed to water. Ooh, I can't flip my hands like this, but you know, the pure upside down triangle, so the pure feminine. So it's like, you know, okay, but you get it. Okay, so it's like because it's so masculine and it's the king, it's, to me, just kind of like the highest embodiment of the Emperor. But okay, so with it being here, again, there is this kind of need for a sense of security, and because I know a lot of people who watch tarot readings are ultimately looking for relationships, as I think, you know, we're all looking for a place to call home, and someone to like, you know, acknowledge us and make us feel just kind of like loved and seen, you know, as again, like I said, I feel like is so important, that aspect of like being seen. So for some people, you know, on the other side of this transition, by maybe doing something that you really want to do, that will ultimately be the thing that gives you your Emperor, you know, your King of Wands. But, you know, again, there's this feeling of stability and security that will be achieved regardless of kind of like what your particular changes that you're going through with this particular pile. So looking for that stability, and I think that confidence ultimately. It's like it's like the Sun is also a very fiery card, and so with this kind of fiery energy here, I feel like some of you could also be trying to kind of like find your spark again, which to me looks a lot like, again, that Knight of Pentacles. I'm really glad I picked this deck. I think that's like, you know, it's like the Knight of Pentacles has all these little like sparky shooting stars kind of flying around him. So there's kind of like this need for an invitation of like fire back in your life almost. But all right, so we're gonna go ahead and finish this out with 2 oracle cards. And so this is the White Light Oracle by Alana Fairchild. Love, 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 love her deck. She is amazing. But her decks or like her descriptions can be a little long sometimes. So because I think there's a lot of goodness, I'm going to take a picture or like leave a like short still shot of the different pages. So if you would like to read those, you can go ahead and pause the video on those, but I will be giving a brief synopsis afterwards, just because there is a lot to those. Okay, so I think that's good actually. Let's go ahead and cut that one more time. I want to cut that one more time. Alright, so we've got Perfume of Sophia and Karma of Kutuhala. And so this one is on this side of the change, so this will kind of be like a little bit of recognition of where you're coming from, and like, you know, I think healing a little bit of this aspect, and this will kind of be helping you get to the stability that you're trying to achieve. Alright, so we've got the first oracle card here, the Perfume of Sophia. So I'm going to pause on the pages, and then I'll talk about my thoughts in a second. So for this one, it was largely about kind of like the timing of the situation and creating space for healing. And then one of the things it talked about in here was a story about how it's like, depending on how ready we are to receive certain information, it can have drastically different effects on us. And so I kind of feel like with this, it's like with this Knight of Pentacles, it may have been something that you tried to do before, but you weren't quite in the space quite necessary for it to be what it fully needs to be for you quite yet. And so with the perfume of Sophia, I do think there is some kind of healing that needs to happen around kind of like, you know, obviously not receiving what it is that you needed, the support and encouragement and even just recognition that you needed in the past. If you can do some healing around kind of like that in some area, I feel like that will kind of help, you know, the timing of the situation work out a little bit better for you, or things kind of moving a little bit more quickly for you. But definitely there's this like energy of like all will be revealed to you in the proper time. I think as long as you are committed to whatever you like really truly feel in your soul is your path and the things that you want to just move forward with kind of consistently, as long as you keep kind of putting that energy towards it, the healing that is blocking you from achieving that path, or the healing needed that is blocking you from achieving that path, will come in time as you kind of like approach these different like barriers or like energy blockades almost kind of. It's like you'll kind of like your guides will work with you to kind of heal through what you need to. And the last card here is the Karma of Kutuhala. So here are the pages. Alright guys, so I just finished reading the Karma of Kutuhala, and I would definitely recommend that you guys actually go back and like pause and read these pages. I think this one more so even than the other one kind of like perfectly encapsulates the message of today's reading in a very beautiful way. And particularly, so I was unfamiliar with this word, but Kutuhala is a Sanskrit term that translates to that which excites wonder. And so to me, it's like this whole thing was kind of talking about allowing your spark and like ultimate kind of like just soul urges drive us and move us forward. And you know, it says it a little bit differently, but to tie it back to the reading that I just did, it's like when you move forward with the things that you know to be so true to yourself so passionately, and you allow yourself to make mistakes and mess up and get back up and really learn and just like, you know, go through the whole major arcana path, like really go through a whole journey and cycle with developing this for yourself. I think it is going to turn out very well for you. You know, I really do truly think that your mind is the one that is being the meanest to you, and that you do have a lot of awesome things waiting for you by committing to this path and doing the thing that you want to do. And yeah, and with this card here and both of these being together, ultimately, I think it's like, because this one was about kind of like the timing of things and this one was about just moving forward courageously, I really do feel like a lot of your healing that needs to take place is in the mental landscape here. And so by kind of forcing yourself out of your mind and into your body by like physically doing this thing, I think it's like that will just like heal so much of what needs to be healed. It's not like you need to heal this before you do the thing. It's like the actual act of doing this thing will be and provide that healing for you. So yeah, that is what I have for you guys. Oh my gosh, and the card on the bottom of the deck, which I didn't show, but this one is the Sun of 417 Hertz, and we had the Sun card in reverse come up in the beginning here. So I think definitely this speaks of a transformation. So even just through the process of watching this video, you know, I think your guides brought you to this reading because it is time for you to kind of go through this change. You know, I think you've been feeling it now for a little bit. Obviously you were enticed by the title of this video. It's time for a change, or time for a change. And so yeah, you know, I think this change is very possible, and I think it's kind of already started for you. And you know, it's like you cannot unwatch this video, you can't unhear the things that I said, you may forget them, but it's like, you know, the moments of magic that we had here now during this reading you know, I think those have already started to put you on that path to success. But do take action, though. That is the most important takeaway here. Yeah, so thank you guys so much. If you would like to support me, I've got some links down below for how you can do that. But the simplest way is just by hitting like, subscribe, and that bell notification if you would like to watch any more of my videos in the future. And leave me a comment down below and let me know if this resonated for you or if there's something that you would like me to read on in the future. And yeah. Thank you guys. I also offer personal readings on my website, and that will also be linked down below. So thank you so much. Bye. Welcome, welcome, pile 2. You guys picked the Luna edition Ethereal Visions Tarot, which this one is actually available on my shop. I am working on getting all of my decks on there, so please check that out if you are interested. But let's go ahead and see what changes you guys have. So I'm doing this a little bit more intuitively just because there are so many different types of changes that we can go through. I want to make sure that I'm leaving it a little bit open to whatever source feels like we need to hear. All right, let me do a couple more shuffles. All right, so you guys got a couple of jumpers. We're going to go ahead and put those out. And I'll go ahead and cut now. All right, so for your first row, you got the Star, the 8 of Swords in reverse, the 9 of Pentacles in reverse, the 9 of Swords in reverse, and the Page of Cups upright. It's interesting that you have like an 8 and 2 9s in reverse here. And you got a lot of later cards too. So 10 of Cups, the Star, Page. I feel like for a lot of you people who picked pile number 2, I feel like you're in kind of like the later stages of a transition just because of all the kind of later cards that are here. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So first one here is the Star card, which is my absolute personal all-time favorite card in the tarot deck. I just love, 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 love this one. Particularly, it's like the Star is about kind of like our purpose. It's like a lot of tarot like interconnects with each other. One of the earlier cards in tarot is the Hermit card, and he's actually got the Star in his lantern, which I love. One of my personal favorite pieces of symbolism. So it's like the Star is like this thing that's alluded to earlier on in our journey, and it's this thing that gives us hope and is our kind of guiding light while we're going through the more difficult cards that come before the Star card, like Death and the Tower, which are some people's least favorite cards to get. So with this card being here, kind of like the change that you guys are going through is something that is ultimately geared towards your kind of ultimate life purpose. And particularly because, again, the Star is a major arcana card, this deals with a kind of like larger soul aspect of us rather than kind of like the more mundane aspects that we go through. So even if kind of like this thing that you're working through may not feel like, you know, it's drastically changing your life, it's still this thing that is very like pertinent to you and who you ultimately want to be. And that's why I think your guides brought you here, is to kind of like emphasize the fact that this is something that is really important to you and will be kind of one of these like key bullet points of your ultimate kind of like life story or telling of yourself. So yeah, definitely stick with it. And for other people, you know, if this isn't a change that you're already going through, or you're feeling like you kind of like need a change in your life, it could be that kind of like you need to make a bigger change in your life than kind of like these more small, like, you know, like new daily habits or stuff like that. It could be that your guides are wanting you to make a bigger shift. So this could be something like a career change or a big move. It's like one of those things that has always felt very hopeful or inspiring to you. And that's the thing that your soul is kind of wanting you to start working towards. So, okay. The next card that we have here is the 8 of Swords in reverse. So 8 of Swords, when it's upright, is kind of like this feeling of feeling trapped and helpless and, you know, not necessarily being able to go where you want to go. With this card being in reverse, it is talking about being freed from that feeling of helplessness. I know for a lot of us, it's like, you know, we have these big things or these ideas that we want to do, but it's like, no, I can't do that. I don't have the money, or I don't have the time, or I don't have, you know, X, Y, or Z, like the things that I need. With this card being here and particularly being next to the star card, for me, it's very hopeful. So it's like whatever this thing is that you're ultimately like really wanting to do, your guides are saying that it's like the limitations that you think you may have aren't there in the way that you think they are. So with the Eight of Swords, one of the things that I always like to point out is that, you know, while she is blindfolded and bound, she's got the ropes behind her. You know, you can't quite see it, but her feet are not bound. You know, you can see by her legs, they're probably not tied together. And she's also got exactly what you would need to free yourself behind you. What do you want to cut a rope with? A sword, and she's got 8 of them right there. In tarot, the swords represent kind of like ideas or a mindset or a thought kind of. And so with them all being there, it's like kind of like in order to free ourselves, we really just need like that one good idea or that one change in mindset, that one just kind of like clear mental something that kind of gets us out of our head a little bit and allows us to see the situation a little bit more fully for what it is. You know, if this woman wasn't blindfolded, she would probably feel a lot more hopeful about her situation because she'd be like, oh, sweet. Look at all these swords. Like I can pick any of these to kind of, you know, progress and move forward. So it only takes one. I think you have a lot more options than you may realize as well. So that's very hopeful. So this kind of is reminding me a little bit of pile 1, where it was kind of saying like the ultimate thing was to just do it. I kind of feel like for this, it's like not so much the same kind of emphasis on like just physically doing this thing. But I think it's like there is still that same kind of energy of like a mental block where it's like mentally not allowing yourself to progress forward on the thing that you really ultimately want to progress forward on. And that's the thing that's needing to change. It's just that it's like you mentally stopping yourself. Okay. So before I get any further, I'm going to talk about the card on the bottom of the deck. So this one is the 10 of Cups, one of the more inclusive cards in this deck, which I love. But the 10 of Cups is kind of like, it's this culmination or completion of an emotional cycle. And so it's like with this being on the bottom of the deck here, so this is kind of like background energy that applies to this big transition that you're trying to go through. It's like, I think it's like this transition will kind of like be that for you. It's like, I think this may have been a little bit more of an emotional journey for you. And again, there's that Page of Cups at the end. And so I don't know, there's like, particularly it's like with the 10 of Cups, there's like this reward for having worked through it. It's like, you know, usually the emotional journeys or cycles are more relationship focused because it's like, you know, just like that's usually it's like people and stuff kind of help bring out emotions in us and we can share our emotions with people. And so the 10 of Cups is like the perfect culmination of that, which results in the creation of something new, a family, another person to receive that love and those cups and those types of things. So with this being here, it's like I do think whatever this particular thing is for you, I think it's something that will kind of like provide more cups for you, or even a thing that provides cups for other people. So it could be like, again, trying to start a new business. I do feel like for some there is a big career change here just because that keeps coming up. But for other people, this could even just be, like I said, because the star deals with kind of like these more internal kind of soul aspects. For some of you, it could even be just like childhood healing, or inner child healing, or healing towards your family or something, because the 10 of Cups can be a family card too. So, okay. The kind of like big shift here is the 9 of Pentacles in reverse, which is really interesting. So the 9 of Pentacles, when it's upright, is about this time of kind of like harvest, completion. It's like the Suit of Pentacles. It's kind of like, to me, the imagery is like you plant a seed, you water your seed, and then you kind of see that seed grow as you progress through the like Suit of Pentacles. And the 9 of Pentacles is when it's like you've put in all that hard work with the 7 of Pentacles and the 8 of Pentacles, and then it's like finally you see the fruits of your efforts. It's like you've put so much work into this thing and it is now a fully completed final project, and you can finally pick and harvest this thing. It's actually kind of interesting. I don't know why I'm feeling called to share this. Maybe it's because the 9 of Pentacles is in reverse, but don't with this being here, it's like, you know, even though you are working towards something that is going to be really awesome for you, your spirit guides want to call attention to not harvest things too soon. I love grapes. Grapes are one of my favorite fruit. I think all fruit is awesome, underappreciated in general. My gamer tag for a long time used to be like juice girl. I love fruit. I have tangerine juice right now that I'm drinking instead of water. But anyways, okay, so I got some like grapes recently from the store. And they looked phenomenal. They were like, the skin was super taut. They looked just really juicy. And like, you know, super excited, got them home, rinsed them off. And like the second bunch of grapes that me and my husband started eating was like so unbelievably sour. It was like so bad. It was like, I borderline can't eat them. I have you know how some people have the cilantro gene? I've got a tannin gene. So tannins just taste bitter to me in general. So sour grapes with tannins just was not my thing. But I think it's like, with this being here, it's like, don't harvest things too soon, because sometimes it's like when things may look like they're ready, if you try to pick it before it is ready, you're not going to get that same, you know, that sweet, awesome, succulent grape that you're hoping for. It's going to be a little bit sour and maybe you won't even be able to eat it. So with this here too, being here, I think it's like, if you do, let's say you're working on something and you feel like you start to see fruit, you start to see some results from something, and it feels like those grapes are a little sour. It's not quite what you want it to be yet, and you're feeling a little bit mentally down on yourself, maybe in this Eight of Swords, where it's like, oh man, I feel like I got here, or it just kind of didn't work out the way that I wanted it to, but for some reason I felt called back to this video, and I'm still searching for this thing, or I feel like there is still this big thing that's like there waiting for me. I think for that, it's like, just give it a little bit more time, you know? It's like, if those grapes were left on the vine a little longer, they would have sweetened a little bit more, and they would have been so good. So sometimes that's all it takes. It's not necessarily that you're doing anything wrong. It could just be that some things take a little bit more time to mature. All right. So the next card that we have here is the Nine of Swords in reverse. So yay, love that this is in reverse. So again, really interesting. The last reading had the 10 of Swords, and this one's got the 9 of Swords and the 8 of Swords. All of them have showed up in reverse. So a lot of like reversal, you know, just like, we'll say like slightly negative mental energy going on here, which makes a lot of sense. The 9 of Swords, when it's upright, is about letting our like negative fears, negative self-talk, kind of just like that mean voice in our head get the best of us. With it being in reverse, it is talking about kind of like overcoming that mindset. And kind of, again, with the 9 of Pentacles, a word that just popped into my head was patience. I think by allowing yourself a little bit more patience, that can even allow this, you know, to maybe not quite feel as severe as it is. Again, there's kind of like this blockage here that's happening. Particularly, it could even be because it's like the like 7 of Swords maybe having an issue, so it's making the like 8 of Swords and the 9 of Swords be in reverse after it. It just popped in my head, so I'm going to talk about it. The 7 of Swords is a card that's about kind of like being sneaky, or having to like keep things close to the chest, because being sneaky doesn't always have to have a negative connotation to it, although it sometimes does. So it could be that it's like, with this thing that is very close, like, you know, this big ultimate thing that you are trying to like work towards and like, you know, achieve for yourself. It could be that it's like, you know, a lot of people say it's like you don't want to speak on things before it's too soon, because it kind of dispels the energy from it. That could even be why these grapes have turned a little bit sour for you, as you tried to share this thing before it was ready. And so again, it didn't quite have the amount of time it needed to mature fully. And so, you know, I feel like it'll be that for some people. I feel like for some other people, it will be kind of like almost like needing to share things, but I feel like it'll be a little bit more so like having to keep things closer to the chest, especially because there was the sour grape thing that popped so heavily into my mind. Generally those, I was so disappointed. The grapes were so sour. It's like every single one I tried to eat, it just like forced me to make that like sour face, you know, where it's like you scrunch it all up and everything. So disappointing. Okay, so the last card that we have here for the first row, and apologies for my chair that you may hear from time to time, is the Page of Cups. So it's interesting that we just talked about the 7 of Swords kind of having to keep things a little bit closer to the chest, because there is ultimately going to be this Page of Cups, which is about being vulnerable and sharing these things. However, I do think there is a distinction between them. It's like, again, the 8 and the 9 of Swords are in reverse, so we're wanting that 7 of Swords, which is a sword, to kind of be corrected. And so it's like a sword is a mental thing, you know, it's an idea. It can also, to me, because the swords symbolize the element of air, it symbolizes communication because we communicate through the air with sound waves as well. So again, there is that just like sharing your thoughts or kind of like your ideas almost with people before the ideas have had a time to ripen and mature. Whereas the Page of Cups is sharing your emotions. It's like how you feel about this thing. And so I think it's like with that distinction, that could be kind of like a change in approach of how you just like talk about this thing that you're doing is just like, you know, it's like, oh, I'm doing this and it kind of makes me feel like this, or it's like this, rather than like, oh my God, I'm going to do this. And then I think I'm going to do this and this and this. Just because I think that'll come across a little bit better in some way, and make it a little bit more kind of like personal to you. And it's like, I feel like sometimes, especially when we talk to other people about kind of like our big purposes, it's like, because they're so specific and tailored to us, it's like, they never really ever quite, I don't know, resonate the same with other people, just because it's like they can't quite see it yet, just because that thing's not fully out there yet. So it's like even sometimes when we're sharing ideas with people, it's like they can maybe not be as supportive as we need them to be, or it's like, again, just because they can't quite see it fully or they're thinking about it in a different way, it can maybe discourage you from getting to this point of harvest that you're trying to get to. So I think, again, just like focusing on how you're feeling, where it's like, yeah, you know, I'm trying this new thing and it's making me feel really excited, or it's like, you know, I'm glad to be doing this again, rather than, I guess, like getting into the details of it. So, all right, so that's the first row. Let's see what the second row of cards has to say. Ooh, you guys got another jumper. It's interesting, I didn't have any jumpers for the first reading. Okay. So 5 of Wands in reverse. And so this one's a pip style deck, which I don't like as much as the like full picture decks. So a little hard to read the reversals, but I do think that is reverse. Okay. And yeah, we'll just do that. Oh wow, we got pretty much all pips, which is interesting. So a lot of minor arcana here. It's interesting, for the first row, all minors except for the star. Second row, all minors except for the sun. What? Look at that. Also, I love the combo of the star and the sun, particularly because the sun is just what, a bigger star in the sky, you know, the biggest star. So to me, it's kind of like, you know, the star is like this first inkling of hope, you know, our ultimate purpose, and then it's like the sun is the full embodiment of that. You know, it's a little bit closer to our world. You can feel the heat, see the effects. It makes things grow to its absolute fullest. So definitely a huge life purpose, self-affirmation, kind of just like, I don't know, like the general change, oh, I just got chills. The general change that I think you guys are trying to embark upon is one that is just way more centered in self in a positive way. You know, it's like, I feel like there's such an attack on the ego in today's society, and it's like, I kind of get it. It's like the ego is not inherently a bad thing. It's like the ego serves a phenomenal purpose, and that's the thing that allows us to kind of like have identity, you know? It's like the individuality is like unique and needed for certain things, just because different people will resonate with different people based on different experiences and stuff like that. But you know, it's like you can't let your ego control you. It's like you can't let kind of like these lower aspects of yourself get in the way of kind of like these like grander things that you want to do. And I think that's the distinction that needs to be focused on, rather than just like, oh, silence the ego, get like, you know, move away from all worldly desires. It's like the things that we want and seek out are inherent to kind of like us and our path, and I think should be like celebrated as parts of us, rather than trying to just kind of like get rid of them. Sorry, I'm talking a lot before I'm even getting into the cards. In therapy, it's like one of the things that my therapist said is there's like carpenter parents and then like gardener parents, where it's like carpenter parents kind of just like cut and mold, you know, their children essentially into kind of like what they think they should be, rather than kind of like just watering them and nurturing them and allowing them to grow into what they ultimately are going to become. I feel like that could definitely be a thing that either happened in childhood, which again is why the Ten of Cups came up, or is a thing that you're kind of like, you know, you just feel like you have to be a little bit more in control and on top of everything. So maybe you've been a little bit carpentry towards yourself, where it's like, you want to do this thing, you know, you enjoy this thing, but someone said it's a little cringe, or, you know, that's not super productive, or that's not going to get you anywhere. And so this thing that is ultimately a part of your ego, or like not even your ego, but just kind of like, you know, one of the reasons why you chose to incarnate was to experience this thing that you loved. Allow yourself to love it, you know, allow yourself to grow with it. Obviously in moderation with everything, like don't let something become a bad habit, but that was a message that needed to come out for some of the people out there, and maybe even a little bit for myself too. Okay, so the first card that we have here is the Five of Wands in reverse. So Five of Wands, when it's upright, is usually like in the traditional like Smith-Waite version of the deck, it's like 5 people standing in a circle all hitting each other with sticks, which to me is a beautiful representation for conflict. And particularly one of the things that I talked about up here was about like not sharing things before they're ready, because again, people can't quite fully see what it's trying to become before, you know, it's like you have the thing to show them. I feel like it's like, to me, the Five of Wands is about kind of like conflicting, like not necessarily ideas, but conflicting interest or passions. It's like a lot of people wanting to like input their energy into something, and because there's too much kind of like energetic input, it kind of becomes a little bit chaotic and messy. With that being in reverse, it's kind of talking about clearing that away, which again, to me, it just, a lot of this, particularly with that star and that sun, it's about kind of like returning to you, returning to your purpose, returning to the things that make you shine, rather than the things you want to, like think and expect other people want to see. So yeah, stay true to yourself. The next card that we have here is the Two of Wands upright. So Two of Wands, when it is upright, is one of the 2 planning cards in the deck, or at least one of the 2 planning wands. The Two of Wands is like, it's picking which general direction you want to head in, and then the card after it, the Three of Wands, is picking which specific path you want to go on once you've picked the general direction. So with this being here, and particularly with it being right after the Five of Wands, you know, like I said, the Two of Wands is one planning, the Three of Wands is another planning. To get the Five of Wands, you have the 2 plus 3. Poof. Okay. But so with this, it's like when you're trying to, I think, figure out what it is that you ultimately want to be doing. Like maybe I'm talking about this and you're like, Shaman, I want to do my ultimate purpose, but you know, maybe there's so many conflicting ideas right now. You're having a hard time kind of sifting through that internally and figuring out what that core essence of it ultimately is. I think for those, just kind of pick like, you know, try to divide this down into kind of like, just, we'll say like 2 general options, and you know, see if you can get as many of your points to fit in any of those 2 categories as you can. And then once you do that, just kind of pick one of the 2, whichever one you feel a little bit more strongly towards. Test it out for a little bit. If it doesn't work, you can go back to trying the other one. But I think once you kind of just pick a general direction, it gives you a little bit of guidance, a slight direction to go in, and that can kind of help you start to move forward. And again, you're just picking a general direction. If you need to course correct and pick a different path, you can do that after you've already moved through this energy. Again, it's like we can't get to later energies unless we move through the prior energies. So if you want to get more detail oriented with this, you got to get the kind of like rough sketch down first. Oh, we've got a 3 right here. 2 of 3, 5. Okay, so the next card is the Three of Pentacles, and this one is in reverse. It's a little hard to tell, but you can see the wings are pointing downward. So the Three of Pentacles, again, upright, is about kind of like teamwork and cooperation with other people. With it being in reverse, it's saying to, again, just kind of like do the thing you want to do and not allow these conflicting ideas affect your ultimate direction. So that feels pretty clear to me. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next one. The next one here is the Seven of Pentacles, also in reverse, which is really interesting that I mentioned that, I think, around the like Nine of Pentacles as well. Seven of Pentacles is about kind of seeing what's developing. It's like this energy of like I talked about all of the pentacles being kind of like this energy of growing a plant. So it's like you plant a seed, you water it, you weed the garden beds, you watch this thing nurture and develop until it's finally time to harvest. The Seven of Pentacles is like when you've just first started seeing like green tomatoes, which is actually really exciting. I planted a tomato bush earlier this year and I am at the green tomato stage. It's very exciting. I go out there and put Reiki into my tomatoes every single day. My neighbors probably think I'm crazy just like hovering my hands around my tomatoes, but that's probably one of the least weird things they see me do. But so it's this energy of like seeing what's developing. It's like kind of this energy in reverse to me. It kind of calls the phrase like don't count your chickens before they hatch sometimes, but it's like, it's like when you're in process with something, it's like you can kind of see what is taking shape from the energy that you're putting into it. So it's like I do art a lot, I do art, it's like I draw, I make stickers on my website, and I do some oil painting and like acrylic painting from time to time too. But it's like, when you're in process with something, like and you're doing a painting or something, it's like you start off with a rough sketch and then you kind of like go in after that and you add in like the details, and then you kind of like, after you've got your line art and everything, then you add the color and then you do the shading, and it's like it's this kind of incremental process that like builds off of each other. And so it's like when you're in any step of the process, you can make changes, It's a lot easier to make changes kind of on the earlier stages than it is the later stages, but there's this constant energy of having to kind of step back and look at what it is you're working on to see if you like what it's turning into. With this card being in reverse though, I think there's kind of like, it's like I feel like part of this upright energy wants to come through where it's like your guides are wanting you to have a little bit more of that kind of step back and observe situation to kind of see what it is that's growing. But I think also with it being in reverse, to kind of circle back to what I initially said, where it's like don't count your chickens before they hatch. It's like just because you see that something is developing doesn't mean it's going to come all the way to fruition. Where it's like, I've got a couple of different tomatoes right now. I've got a very active tree in my backyard with a lot of squirrels and a lot of birds. I feed some of the neighborhood cats in my area, so I hope they protect my tomatoes for me. But, it's inevitable that some of them will not make it to my table. And so with this being here, I think it's like kind of here almost so that way it's like it wants to just have that in your expectation so that way you don't become disappointed when everything doesn't necessarily work out. But I do think, again, with the star and the sun both being upright, whenever we work towards our ultimate life path and the things that are just so uniquely us, it's like the universe loves that. The universe is in us. It's like the thing in us that gives us life and sentience and allows us to love and experience life and all of the wonderful joys that are here. It's like that same spark in us is the same spark that's in everybody, and it's like that spark, that life in us is the universe. It's like the divine. And so when we feel more excitement, when we feel more alive, it's like we are living life just to the fullest. The universe in us and the universe in other people love to see that. They respond to it so fully, so just like, I don't know, with open arms that it's like it almost can't help but to work out because you're just shining so brightly, and that's just like what we all love. So yeah, to go back to the sun, it's like, again, you are just like, you are working towards this, you are working towards something. Again, I think it is going to be a process. But again, because it's like this thing is so personal to you, it's like really don't let other people kind of affect how you do this thing. Just because like, you're the only one who can do it. A thing that I try to do in a lot of like my personal artwork and like even my readings is like I like to make them something that like no one else can do, It's like nobody else has the exact same set of experiences that I have. No one else has the exact same point of view that I have. And no one else has the same set of skills that I have. And so it's like when you can make something so uniquely you that it's kind of like, I don't know, almost like no one else could have done it. I feel like, I don't know, that's just like where we really shine, is like when we get those, I don't know, just like really unique things. We're in the age of Aquarius too, so I think kind of like as a society, we're kind of like seeking out more of that uniqueness, especially after coming out of the age of Pisces, where everything was so uniform, so you know, just like not quite like hive mentality, but just kind of like, you know, there you can see it in like the neighborhoods in America with all the cookie cutter neighborhoods, the cookie cutter products, and like, you know, just a lot of uniformity. I think we're kind of ready for something a little bit different. And so maybe if the thing that you're trying to work towards is something that is, you know, a little bit different from what people maybe are used to or even kind of what they expect, go for it. You know, people won't know what they like until they see it. You know, it's like you can't get a new favorite movie until you see it for the first time, right? So I say go for it. All right, let's get your last oracle cards here. Ooh. All right, sticking with the jumpers, you got Sovereign Queen Maeve. That's going to be your last one. Alright, Ishtar's Lion Gate, 888. Love the Lion's Gate, always have phenomenal stuff happen to me on the Lion's Gate portal. Had a Reiki session where I met God this last year. It was awesome. But okay, so Sovereign Queen Maeve. So this is the White Light Oracle by Alana Fairchild. Absolutely amazing. If you could only get one oracle deck in your life, I recommend getting a Alana Fairchild one that you feel called to. They are very wordy though, but I think there's a lot of good messages in here. So for both of these cards, I'm going to pause on each of the pages so you can read those each if you would like, and then I'll kind of give my little synopsis afterwards of the things that stood out to me. So here is Sovereign Queen Maeve. All right, so I feel like this one talked a lot about kind of the general theme of the message today, which was about like doing the things that you ultimately want to do and protecting it from interference, even that which may be well-intentioned. So again, it's staying true to yourself rather than doing the things that other people feel like you should be doing. And again, I really do feel like ultimately it's like your soul is trying to guide you to somewhere that is very specific for you. And other people haven't, you know, other people can't see that. It's like, again, no one else has been there before. And it's like you're the only person who has kind of like this little internal map to get there. And so if you keep taking directions from other people, you know, you're not going to get to where you're going because they don't know how to get there. One of the things that I really liked in this was this last bit. So in Sanskrit, Savaraj, I've never heard that word before, so I do not know how to pronounce it, so I will look that up afterwards. But it means self-rule. And as the meaning of Raj is radiant, so I guess Svaraj, Raj is radiance, it can also mean self-luminous, which I loved, particularly because we've got, again, the star and the sun, which are both luminaries in the sky. They may be the only two luminaries. No, there's the moon too. So the star, the sun, and we're missing the moon, but those are the luminaries in the sky. So again, I think whatever it is that you're working for, it's like not only a thing that will like, you know, just obviously it will be so unique to you and make you just like so happy and excited to do this thing. But I also think it's a thing that will provide light for other people, where it's like, you know, because you have done something in such a unique way to you, it's like it'll inspire other people and they will be like, wow, oh my God, I didn't even realize you could put, I don't know, like I just like hot dogs with fried green tomatoes. I don't know why that popped into my head, or like a cooking analogy, but it's like, you know, it's like if you've never put two things together before or whatever it is that you want to do, it's like you'll never know what a great dish it can be. So and then once you make a great dish and other people taste it, then everybody starts to make it, you know. Again, definitely don't share things before they're too soon. I kind of feel like for some of the people here, it's like kind of just like let your light shine and let people come to you rather than kind of seeking validation out per se. But it's like kind of it's like don't be afraid to share again, but like don't do it too soon. I think timing will be a big thing, which also makes sense. The one luminary that's missing that I just talked about is the moon card, which is about timing. So that's the thing that's missing right now, is that timing aspect. Okay, And then the last oracle card is 44. Ishtar's Lion Gate. So same thing, all these pages open, and then I'll talk about them in a second. Alright, so this oracle card was kind of all about just like, you know, blessings are coming your way. It's like because you have kind of connected with, you know, the higher realms, and particularly I think a higher aspect of yourself, it's like by allowing that to kind of channel and flow through you, it's like that will provide the abundance and I think support and security that you're ultimately looking for through all of this. It talks about like a triumph after challenge as well. So I feel like, again, for some of you people, this may be a thing that you have struggled with before, or again, it's like you've, because you wanted to have this succeed so much, you allowed so much external opinion kind of enter into the picture, that it may have made things a little bit more difficult. Again, that conflict card just showing up in some way. And so, you know, there is victory. There's victory after conflict. Right after the 5 of Wands comes the 6 of Wands. And that's kind of a similar vibe to what this one was saying. So yeah, blessed may you be, pile number 2. I hope this works out awesome for you. I forgot to mention it earlier, but the card on the bottom of the deck here is the 10 of Wands, which is all about kind of just like lessening the load ultimately. So if you've had a bit much on your plate, again, I think once you simplify a little bit and just do the things that you want to do, that'll kind of make things pan out a little bit better for you. So thank you so much. If you liked this reading, go ahead and leave a like, comment, and subscribe down below. If you would like to support me, I offer readings on my website and a small selection of decks and stickers and some other fun stuff too. So take care, guys. I love you all, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. Hello, welcome, pile 3. Welcome to your reading. You guys picked the White Light Oracle by Alana Fairchild. And I'm a little salty. This is the 3rd time I've had to do your guys' reading. The first time I filmed it, I did not press record apparently when I thought I did. And then I went back to end it and, you know, obviously saw that I hit record just then. Filmed a second one. A lot of the same messages kind of tried to come through, but Spirit wanted me to stop, and so here I am filming it a 3rd time again. I think this time it wants me to pull your oracle cards first, which I kind of wanted to do but then didn't do, so that's on me for not listening to my intuition. Created a lot more work for myself in the process, boy didn't I. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. And so that could even be one of the changes that is trying to be instigated for you guys, is listening to your intuition a little more. It's actually interesting. This is a card that came up for you guys' reading too, where it's like, you know, I knew that's what I wanted to do, but because of just kind of how I thought the reading format should be, I didn't want to do that. So maybe that could be a thing for you guys. It's like you have a voice inside you trying to tell you something that you need to do and how to do it, but mentally you're just not allowing yourself to do it. So, alright, we got Perfume of Sophia and Yeshe Sogyal. I hope I pronounced that okay. 333. So it's interesting. This one actually came through for the first reading, if I remember correctly. And then this one, so this is number 12, which in numerology reduces down to a 3. And this one is 33. 333. So it's got a lot of 3 energy here. So kind of like teamwork, cooperation. You know, for me personally, it's like cooperation with the divine, you know, have to work with them, you know, for whatever reason, it's important that these oracle cards come out first before the tarot for this reading. So that's what I'm doing. Oh my god. And the Sun of 417 Hertz too, which I think came up in the second reading or the first reading. I think it was the second reading if I remember correctly. But alright, so I'm going to go ahead and read these from the book. So this is phenomenal oracle deck. All of the ones by Alana Fairchild are amazing. The actual entries for the cards are very long, so I'm not going to read all of these, but I will pause on the pages if you want to read, you know, the full description for the cards. And then I'll give my kind of synopsis. So this is Yeshe Sogyal. right, so they do tell me how to pronounce it. Yeshi Sagyal. So Yeshi Sagyal. It makes a lot more sense. So a lot of this was about kind of like having a really strong spiritual connection and like working with your spirit guides in order to kind of like accomplish the things that you want to accomplish, and also recognizing that it's like, you know, in order to do these big things that we want to do, you know, stuff has to happen gradually in steps. You know, it's like this person, Padmasambhava, it's like they went to this place, the Para Valley, and like spent 3 years, 3 months, 3 weeks, and 3 days meditating and performing rituals to subdue the demons that were harming the people of the land. And in that process, you know, they received the guidance of teachers that they needed as they needed them. And so the number 3 in numerology, again, emphasized here and again emphasized here on the Perfume of Sophia, emphasize this kind of like energy of teamwork and cooperation, and like, you know, with this one being all about assistance from the other side. And one of the things it said was like, oh, we will get get you to where you need to be even if spiritual intervention is needed. I like felt that for you guys, even just with me having to film this video 3 times. So there's another 3 there. You know, I feel like my first reading obviously just wasn't up to par. Maybe there was a message in it that wasn't quite said the right way, and so it needed to be refilmed to be different. And honestly, that reading was very similar to Pile 2 anyway, so. But, you know, it's like, whatever change it is you guys are trying to manifest, you know, I think by working with your spirit team maybe a little bit more closely, even if it is a little bit like ego hitting, like I did not love that I had to refilm this video. I thought I crushed it that first time. I got into aspects of palmistry, which I usually don't do in readings, and like all of this stuff, but that's not what was meant to come out, and that hurts my ego because, you know, I thought I did a good job, but clearly it's like for the grander purpose, you know, something else was needing to happen here. And so let's go ahead and do Perfume of Sophia. And it's interesting that this one comes right after Sacred Scar, which came up the first time for you guys. But okay, so there you go. Alright, and it's interesting that a lot of this card was about kind of like timing of things. Even the first sentence here is, you will be able to sense the best timing and approach to take. And a lot of this is about like, if you try to force something before it's time, it can actually have an adverse effect than if it had come a little bit more naturally, a little bit further on down the line. And trying to force stuff is particularly bad. So to me that was really interesting, especially because it was like, you know, my first intuitive nudge was like, oh yes, for every different pile, pull that pile's cards first. But for the timing of the reading, I usually like to do the oracle cards last because I feel like they kind of wrap up a reading really nicely. But that was me holding myself back from what actually needed to happen. And because I didn't allow that process to happen as it wanted to, I tried to force it to be a different timing. It didn't work out and it caused me frustration, and I had to refilm this video a couple of times. And so I think that could be one of the messages for this pile, is just that it's like, you know, sometimes patience is just as necessary in, I don't know, process as action, but also just kind of like listening to yourself, even if it's something that feels a little bit different, or, you know, just like not what you usually see or not the norm. It's like sometimes necessary to do it because it's like by doing it in that way, it creates a different timing, or, you know, just the energy interacts with it a little bit differently. And that could be what someone else is needing in order to kind of like receive whatever it is that you're trying to put out there. So yeah, there we go. And yeah, so we're going to keep both of these oracle cards in the back of our mind as we move on to the tarot cards now. And yeah, see what change your spirit guides are trying to assist through proper communication and timing. Yeah, timing is a big one for this, so we'll see what that does. Be cool if we saw like the moon or some other timing specific cards. I just saw the sun on the bottom of this deck, and the sun has been coming up a lot in readings. Okay, so we'll do 3, because the number 3 has been big today. All right, and so I even thought about pulling 3 cards, and I pulled 5. And so because I don't want them to shut this video down again, I'm actually going to pull these 2 cards off to the side and just do the 3 like I thought. So, all right, there we go. So for your guys' first cards here, you've got the 7 of Swords, that Yeshi Sogal, 3 of Swords, and the 9 of Wands upright. So actually all of these are upright, which hooray! Oh my god, I've had so many reversals, so I guess in me having to do it this way, hooray, we finally turned these cards upright. So, okay. First one here is the 7 of Swords. So 7 of Swords is kind of like a slightly sneaky-ish energy to it. When it's upright, it's a little bit less the negative connotation of sneaky and a little bit more so just kind of like tactical, where it's like, you know, keeping things a little bit closer to the chest until it's kind of time to reveal them. There's a lot of different stories that happen inside of the actual just like tarot deck. One of them is there's kind of like this battle that's going on in the background. The 7 of Swords is like a soldier has an idea to kind of go behind enemy lines and steal their swords, and he's like carrying them out like in his little cape cloak thingy that, you know, travelers had back in the day. And it's like some of the swords are spilling out, but he's taking what he can with him. With this card being here, and with it kind of being about the timing of situations, you know, it's like this guy did that strategically before the battle, so that way the enemies wouldn't have the swords during the battle, which, you know, that wouldn't really quite have the same effect if you waited to do it afterwards, right? Kind of adding me a little bit with these cards. But so it's like for you guys here, it's like, you know, you want to make sure that you do things in the proper timing, because certain things do have to happen before other things can happen. And it's like once there is this kind of like progression or succession that happens, you know, I just think things can happen a little bit better. Sorry, this is getting a little personal for me. I have like one thing that my spirit guides have been telling me to like do in my day-to-day life, but it's like a thing that is like a little big and scary. It involves like a legal something, which I've never had to do before. I may potentially have to like sue somebody, and I'm just kind of like, you know, it's a little scary. And it's like, as I've been trying to kind of do more like tarot readings and stuff, it's like the universe has kind of kept bringing that back up to my attention, and so that could be a thing for you guys, where it's like you have something that it's like your guides have been telling you that you like, you need to do this before you can do this, but it seems a little daunting or scary, or maybe it's something that is so drastically different from anything that you have done before, or even who you thought you are or would be as a person, that it just kind of makes it a little difficult to have to do that. And so, you know, your reader, you're here, which I try to step aside as an ego, but sometimes it does want parts of me to come through to help with the reading. It like almost uses me a little bit as a deck during this, which I think is interesting. You know, I think, you know, that could be a thing that's happening for you guys. And like particularly with this 3 of Swords up right here in the middle, 3 of Swords is all about heartbreak. You know, I think it's like whatever you guys may need to do may be something that involves, you know, addressing someone else who has hurt you. The 3 of Swords is usually like the heart that's got the 3 swords kind of stabbed through it. And the energy of this card is heartbreak, but it's like, you know, the energy is like 3 strikes and you're out. It's not that there is like one sword in the heart, or even that all of the swords are sticking out of the same place. It's like one down the middle, one down the side, and one down the other side. So it's like kind of like it hits from all aspects, and it's like a little bit more consistent. It's not just one thing that happened. It's kind of like a theme of things that have happened. And so it's also the number 3. I love that it's like you have the 3 in the middle of this little, I don't know, 3 thing right here. So it's like, I don't know, huge triple 3. But, you know, and so it's like, I think, you know, one of the other aspects of this timing thing may be that, like, you know, wounds do take time to heal. So it's like, you know, for other people, it could be that it's like you need to heal from something that you have kept a little bit secretive or close to the chest for a while. And in order to really progress and move forward on the thing that you are wanting to, or even just instigate change, because, you know, this whole reading is just about time for a change. And so it's like, you know, this could be the change. It's just recognizing that it's like, you don't have to keep hiding how you've been hurt, you know, because the Seven of Swords is about keeping things hidden sometimes too. It's like, you know, you have these wounds and they're, you know, that is okay. It's like you can't pretend that you don't have these wounds, because you can't heal and dress a wound unless you first see it and recognize it for what it is. You know, it's like, it's actually interesting. Again, this card came up in the first reading that I did that didn't get filmed. And one of the things that I referenced was like a little skit from like a Monty Python movie, which was a little old for my time. You know, it was like our older siblings, you know, our friends' older siblings and stuff would like, you know, vaguely know of it, but it was like, it was a little old. But it's like there's this like bit where it's like there's this knight who's trying to stop the Monty Python knight group from progressing. And it's like, you know, it's like the little bit is like, oh, 'tis a flesh wound. It's like there's this knight that the other guy keeps, like, he cuts off his arm and he's like, what? Your bloody arm's off. And he's like, oh, it's nothing, it's merely a flesh wound. And then he cuts his other arm off and then his leg, so he's kind of just like a stump, and he's still just like, have at me, I'll fight you, I'll beat you all. And it's like, it's funny because he's not admitting, you know, his incapability or the ways that he's been hurt. And that can be like us sometimes, you know, it's like we're so visibly like missing an arm or leg, or, you know, somebody stabbed us right in the heart. And it's like people can see that, you know, they can see that we're hurting, they can see that we are unwell. But unless we're willing to kind of like address those things and like heal and move past them, we can't really change, you know. It's like if you go to a doctor and they're like, oh man, I see your arm's missing. You're like, what? No, it's not. I've still got it. You're like, okay, well, I guess you don't need a new one then. You're like, yeah, I guess not. You know, it's like you have to be willing to be open to changes. And again, it's like kind of like the progression. You got to admit that something is hurting or something first before you can move into the kind of healing energy for it. So, all right. And the last card that we have here is the Nine of Wands. And I like to read this like the way that the what's it called? The Wild Unknown Tarot. I gave that deck away to somebody years ago, and like I felt like it was, I can't buy that deck again because I gifted it for some weird reason. But I like to read the Nine of Wands the way that that particular tarot deck describes it, where it's like you're on that last step of a staircase before you're on that next landing, and it just requires that last little bit of push and oomph and effort to kind of get you into that next place that you need to be in. And so I feel like for you people who picked pile number 3, because so much spiritual guidance went into this, it's like, you know, I feel like you guys are maybe a little bit more spiritually connected. And so I feel like you guys are kind of ready for this healing, and you're ready to be on another landing. You know, you're ready for a change. Obviously, that's why you clicked on this video. You want to see some change manifest in your life. And I think your spirit guides are saying this is the best kind of change that you could manifest for you. Is like, you know, maybe you're in a healing journey or a cycle. You are so close to getting this healing needed that you just have to take that last little oomph. Even for me, for my thing, you know, I've done a lot of work for my legal situation. You know, I have one more thing I want to send to the person before I do decide to take legal action. And that's my last little oomph before my little thing. And so it's like, you know, it's like sometimes it's just a matter of doing it. You know, I haven't done my thing. Maybe you haven't done your thing, but maybe we can do them together. I'm going to send my thing after this video. But you know, it's like, I do think you are ready for a graduation, and I think you're also ready to not be wounded anymore. Like, I think you are just like ready to heal, particularly because that's also what the perfume of Sophia was talking about, was that healing. And even just like both the tiger and Sophia are looking at this Three of Swords here. It's like they are both looking at this wound, and it's like almost like, you know, if this is the past, this is the present, and this is the future. It's like, you just keep looking towards this. It's like this is like this almost like center focal point of your being right now, where it's like when you look back to the past, you're kind of thinking about this wound, and even maybe sometimes when you're planning for the future, you're trying to accommodate for this wound that you have here. So yeah, I think it's definitely time. All right, let's go ahead and pull these second cards. It's time for us to move on to the next part of the reading. Ooh. All right, Knight of Cups. Oh my god, that one came out in the last one that I did too. Oh my gosh, yeah, and you've got the sun on the bottom of the deck too. This one, I think the sun card came up in the... It may have come up in both pile 1 and pile 2. Gosh, because I've had to film like 6 of these now, I'm kind of forgetting which one was which. But yeah, so that's cool. I'm going to talk about this for a second after I cut these. What? That's crazy. Okay. So I'm actually going to go, no, I'm going to leave this. Okay. So, card on the bottom of the deck. So this one is the Sun card. So, Sun card is all about this kind of pure culmination of self-expression on a soul level. It's like, you know, we go through the whole fool's journey in order to ultimately get to the sun. Personally, my favorite card is the Star card. You know, I think the sun is just a closer version of the star that we can kind of feel the heat and light from a little bit more fully, but it's still a star. My opinion. So it's like, you know, with this being here on the bottom of the deck, you know, I think it's like, you know, all of this healing and growth that you're trying to go through, it is ultimately about trying to just let you feel more like yourself. You know, it's like you are not your wounds, as much as we can kind of come to identify with them over time. And so because we are not those things, it's like by healing these things, you will actually get to discover more of yourself, because you are like just allowing space for more of you to fill it. It's like, you know, these, when the swords go through the heart, you know, the physical mass of that sword is taking up that physical bit of space inside that heart. And so once you can remove that sword, then that heart has space for more of it to grow into itself, you know? Okay, so, and sorry, before I get into this row, it wants me to talk about the 2 cards that I pulled off the top of the, or like out of here as well. So it's interesting that you had the Queen of Cups and the 7 of Pentacles. 7 of Pentacles is all about kind of seeing what is growing and progressing and developing. Queen of Cups is kind of like this intuitive feeling as well, where it's like she feels her feelings, you know, she is like very just about kind of like sitting in and being moved by her emotions. When I think these 2 together can be very powerful as you're trying to like, you know, heal from things. It's like as you heal, you can kind of see where, like, you know, it's a journey, it's a process. So it's like when you're in each step of the process and you kind of are feeling things out internally, it's like you need to feel into things when you're growing through this. It's like that check-in that you can have. It will help you even further progress past this, where it's not like, you know, you can't just like decide one day to be healed and then like, oh poof, oh my god, what, I'm healed. It's like it takes time. And honestly, a lot of times it requires us to be triggered to know that a thing is still bothering us. So if you do get triggered, you know, through this healing process, just kind of feel into it in a positive, healthy way. Like feel into what your body is like wanting you to do, rather than just kind of like the negative feeling that it brings up. So it's like, I feel scared, I want to run, I want to do something. It's like, okay, well, like, why do we feel that way? It's like, well, I want to run because I don't know, it's like when I was a kid, my dad would come and hit me when I was in trouble, so I just feel like I need to go hide or something. You know, I hope that's, you know, older generations used to be a little bit more into spanking kids, so like I totally get that. That's like a generational wound that a lot of people are still like working through, is like the kind of like physical pain response that they get from like mistakes, because that was a very real thing in childhood, was like mistakes, even if they were small or mental or emotional mistakes, brought real physical pain. So that's a message out there for somebody. Unfortunately, I'm very sorry you had to go through that. And again, a lot of people are healing from that too, so you're definitely not alone. Okay, so the first card that we have here for this second row is the Knight of Cups. So the Knight of Cups is about kind of like moving forward with your feelings. So it's like the card that comes before this is the Page of Cups, which is to me about, again, just like being very vulnerable and open. The Knight of Cups is then taking that thing that you kind of like sussed out a little bit more in that page energy, and you can like move forward with it. So a lot of times in love readings, this is like the moment where it's like you can confess, or it's like, you know, you can like tell the other person how you feel about them and stuff. There's always a sense of motion with cups, and to me it's like this is talking about a just like motion or movement with your emotional state, especially because there's that healing that's coming through twice, you know, 3 of Swords here, 3 of Swords here, and these are both in the middle too, so this is kind of like the crux of the transition that you're going through is going to have to involve healing, which is unfortunate. I'm sorry, I know that kind of sucks, but it's like no matter what we do, we are always healing, you know. It's like not that healing sucks, it just sucks that you were wounded in the first place, you know, and it sucks that you have to heal, you know, so I am empathizing with that. So, Knight of Cups to the King of Swords. So, King of Swords is the full master of the kind of mental landscape. With this card being here, I do think that it's like, I think you will meet somebody who will kind of help be a like guiding light for developing a more sound mental structure. You know, for a lot of people, this could even be therapy. You know, I feel like I'm pretty on top of my growth for the most part. Like, you know, for years I've been on a spiritual path doing like yoga, meditation, journaling, actively trying to heal these parts of me that I know are not the best. But I started therapy this last year, and like, oh my god, just the like couple of like months of like professional help that I've had so far have been just like amazing. It's like it really helps sometimes, I think, to have that outside perspective from like a trained standpoint. So it's like, you know, the King of Swords is the full master of his element. You know, it's like in the progression of the cards, it's like, you know, novice, you know, a little bit of expertise, kind of like somebody who intuitively understands things, and then somebody who just like fully mentally understands why the things happen the way that they happen. With this being here, it's like that's kind of like what I'm getting from this is just like a professional, like a mental health professional for most of the people who are watching this. For other people, this will be a mentor in some other way, but I really do feel like this will be like mental health professionals, somebody who has that mastery, who can help you kind of develop that mastery in and of yourself. And will, you know, they are holding a sword here. It's like they can help you start to remove some of these swords, and again, then by that removal you will have the space to fill it with the things that you need to fill it with. So got that there. And then we've got the 3 of Swords again. So again, it is kind of just like further emphasizing that need to heal and the wounds that you do have. Again, it's even showing just like the 3 swords through the heart there, and the holes that they create too, where it's like, you know, when you do become wounded, it's like those wounds do kind of like, not like fester, but it's like they become bigger, especially when you're not addressing the thing that's in there. It's like, you know, if you've got like a little thorn, or it's like, you know, you go hiking and you get like one of those little sticky burr things in you. If you just kind of like leave it in there and you don't remove it, it's like, you know, as you go through your day-to-day life, stuff is gonna hit it, not like, you know, touch it, adjust it a little bit, and it's gonna kind of wiggle itself either further in there or just move a little bit and kind of like opening up that wound a little bit more. And so it's kind of just like, I think your spirit guides are really wanting to call to your attention that it's like, you know, you have been wounded, you have been hurt. That is not what they're trying to like, it's like nobody is arguing that you haven't been hurt, you know? It's like, I think sometimes it's like we sometimes just have to recognize kind of like how hurt we have been, or it's like sometimes it's hard for us to realize just kind of like how deeply these things actually like did affect us, and it can sometimes only be when we start to kind of remove these things that we can fully see it. It's like when we do finally decide, it's like, oh man, I really should take you know, that little thing out of me or whatever, and then you go to remove it and it's like, oh man, it's a little bit deeper. You know, maybe it's like in the process, it's like, you know, when I was a kid, I lived in California and we would have cactuses all over our property. And we had a dog, and sometimes our dog would, like, you know, get his ball stuck by a cactus and we would have to get it out so he wouldn't just keep sticking his head directly into the cactus. And so it's like, you know, it's like sometimes those little things would get broken, and so it's like, you know, you move around a lot, the needle gets hit. And so it's like you kind of have to go a little bit deeper into it to kind of fully remove these things. And that could even be a little something that's happened too, where it's like you did a bit of healing, but because you didn't want to acknowledge the full aspect of the situation, it's like a little tip of that sword got knocked off, and you may have even healed over that tip. So it's like, in order to go back in there and get that last bit that you're needing, it's gonna feel like you're going through a lot of that old wounds or things that you've already healed from, but it's like you have to get to that unhealed bit because that is still there and it's still needing that bit of attention, so it doesn't fester and become even worse for you. Not to scare you, it's like, you know, obviously nothing happens that we are like incapable of handling. With this one, you know, it did talk about, like, you know, the proper timing of things. It's like when you try to force situations before their time is ready, it can be more harmful than if you had waited. I feel like for this, it could just be that that's kind of like, you know, if you try to rush into this healing before you're ready, there will be things that do get broken off that you'll have to kind of revisit later. But I think also it's like, all of healing is a cycle, you know, it's all a journey. Sometimes there's, you know, we can only really handle pulling out so much of a needle, and like, you know, maybe sometimes if we do it the right way, it's like we bring a little, like, most of it out and then it snaps off, but it's a little bit closer to the surface. You don't have to go quite as deep the next time to pull it out. You know, just, I think with this, it's like just understanding that there is a wound that is there, that is still requiring some healing, that your spirit guides are working with you towards achieving that healing. That's really just what they're trying to get through to you. It's like, don't let that scare you. Don't feel like it's like, oh my god, I gotta get all of it out now or it's just gonna come back to hurt me later. No, it's kind of like that thing that I talked about before where it's like that being triggered. It's like, you know, we can't really heal everything unless we know that it needs healing. And so it's like, do whatever healing you need to do. You know, definitely if you do decide to get a therapist after this, which I would recommend, you know, you can talk to your therapist about the things that trigger you. And like, you know, that can point to things that still need healing, or even point to the specific like thing that caused the wounds in the first place. Which, like, you know, you got to be able to tell what the sword is in order to pull it out. So yeah, we've got that there. The next card here is the Devil card in reverse. So the Devil card is all about kind of like letting our bad instincts and habits kind of like drive us, rather than taking control of our own life and our own destiny and moving ourselves forward. The card that comes right after the Devil card is, let's see, 15, 16. I think that's Death or the Tower. I think that's the Tower card. So I think the Tower card comes right after the Devil card. And so it's like right after we have kind of like this, you know, we recognize that we're kind of holding ourselves back in some way, or there's some aspect of us that seems a little bit out of our control that is guiding our actions. When we can move past that, that allows for this really deep transformation and a kind of like really profound letting go that needs to happen. And to me, the Devil in reverse talks about overcoming these bad habits. So it's like, I think due to the ways that you have been hurt or wounded, you may have adopted some kind of like coping mechanisms, which, again, I think I talked about in one of the last two versions of this video. I may have talked about it in one of the last readings, but it's like, so with the Devil card being in reverse here, I do think that it's like, because of those things that you developed during this, it's like as you go through and heal these, you are going to have to kind of like release some of these as well. And so it's like, you know, the coping mechanisms that we develop, it's like, they are there to protect us for the time that we need them, because we do need them, you know, for a certain time. Like, for some people, it's like, you know, in childhood, we become wounded. So much childhood healing that I think is always happening all the time. but it's like, you know, when, let's say it's like your parent is a little aggressive and they yell at you. And so it's like, you know, in order to protect yourself for that, it's like, you know, in difficult conversations, you emotionally shut down or something like that. It's like, that's a thing that did protect you at a time, but now it's a thing that may prevent you from developing a sense of connection with people when things get a little emotionally intense or something. And it's like, you know, it's not that you are a like emotionally stoic person. It's like you had to be that to protect yourself from being wounded in a place where you were more open. And so it's like, you know, it's not a good thing to be the way, like to have that coping mechanism. It's like a sign of being wounded. And it's like, so coping mechanisms I think are sometimes hard to kind of like let go of, because it's like they did serve us and work so well for us during a period of time. But when we move out of that unhealthy environment, we need to release those kind of like unhealthy expectations of other people, because I think ultimately for, it's like, let's say the example that I described, it prevents you from being more open and receptive and like emotionally connective to other people around you. And so it's like anything like that with the Devil card, it's like a thing that really does prevent you from like connecting with the people around you a little bit more fully. The thing at the bottom of the Devil's card is the two lovers from the Lovers card. You can see it again a little bit better in the traditional version of the deck. But it's like it's like this thing stops love from being more prevalent in your life, whether it be doing the things you love, being with the people you love, or just acting in a way that you love. It's preventing something like that from happening. And so through this healing, you will naturally kind of move through healing some of these things that you've developed throughout the years, as well as have to be willing to let go of them too. Like, you know, alcohol is most people's drug of choice. It is like such a good numbing agent. And so it's like, you know, when you just kind of want to shut everything out, you know, it's like when you heal the things that make you feel that way, you'll have to then heal, you know, that relationship to being shut out. You know, so that is going to happen. And the last card here is the Eight of Pentacles, which is all about steady, consistent work. So with any healing that happens, you know, or with anything that we do, so few times does it just poof happen right away. You know, it takes steady, consistent work to achieve results. Particularly the Eight of Pentacles is a blacksmith card, and so it's like, you know, when a blacksmith is creating a sword, it is not just like hammer, 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 poof, oh my god, the sword is just here and sharp and ready to go. It's like, no, it takes so much process. It's like, first you've got to like melt the steel, then you've got to temper the steel, then you've got to fold the steel, then you've got to shape the steel, and there's this process of like, you know, going back to the bellows and hammering it out, putting it back in and hammering it out. And every single hammer strike you make is shaping and molding this piece of metal into what you want it to turn into. And so with this, it's like there will be this kind of like hard work that is required to put into it. But also with blacksmithing, it's like you really do get to see the impact that your effort is having. It's like when you're working with metal, it's like every hammer strike that you do, you see the dent in the metal that it is making. You can see it becoming closer to the ultimate shape you're trying to get. And I usually do the sword analogy with the blacksmith, just because I feel like that's a stereotypical blacksmith sword, you know, whatever. There's even that show on Netflix, like The Forge, you know, where they do the knife thing. But, you know, I think it's really interesting that he's making a pentacle here. You know, obviously it is the Suit of Pentacles, but I think that's really beautiful. It's almost like creating this like shield or something here. It's like if the devil is an unhealthy shield, it's like developing healthier barriers, you know, this time. So it's like rather than shielding yourself off from the world, you create healthy parameters for other people to engage with you that makes you feel safe and protected, but also still allows you to live the life that you want to live. So that is what I have for you guys. Again, usually I pull the oracle cards here to wrap everything up, but they were the cards first. So card on the bottom of the deck was the Sun of 417 Hertz, which to me is like a minor arcana version of the Sun card. So it's that full self-expression, which is also on the bottom of this deck, which is very exciting. I love it when stuff like that happens. Let me know if you do too. I love synchronicities. But the very last card that I will talk about before I end your reading is the Six of Swords in reverse. So last card on the bottom of the deck, this is background energy that applies to the situation, but it's not necessarily something you can act from. Six of Swords, when it's upright, is all about kind of moving from one area into another. Sometimes it can even be about moving, traveling overseas. There's this kind of motion. It's like, you know, he's in a boat going from like one continent to another, one piece of land to another. So there's kind of like a bigger jump with it that happens there than some of the other kind of like traveling cards in the tarot. But with it being in reverse, it is saying that it's kind of like, I think this journey that you're trying to go, oh my god, well, and oh. Okay, 3 swords, 3 swords, 3 plus 3 equals 6. There's the 6 swords. They're not in the guy, you know. It's like he's removed the swords. So it's like, I do feel like you will be able to remove these swords without having to like get away from yourself, if that makes sense. It's like there's this energy of being able to do this without it being, we'll say, as big of a leap as you maybe think that it is, or maybe even if you've kind of built up this healing journey to be something that is a little bit bigger in your mind, or you have built it up in your mind to be something that's a little bit bigger than what it actually is going to be in the actuality of the situation. So that is what I have for you guys, pile number 3. Thank you for sticking with me as I have stuck with myself and filmed this 3 times for you guys. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe down below. Let me know if this resonated with you, particularly the 2 oracle cards that I pulled in the beginning. Let me know if those had any extra special messages for you, and if you feel so inclined, I do recommend doing the like healing journeys that Alana Fairchild has in her books. I do sell a couple of these decks on my website. Currently I sell these 2, working on getting this one, and I do personal readings, sell my stickers, my artwork, some other fun stuff on there. I am new to tarot, or not tarot, I've been doing this for years, but I'm new to the YouTube side of this, so if you guys have any comments about videos that you would like to see in the future, or things that you would like me to do or include in my videos for you guys, like I see some people do like the they do like sound picking for like the videos, or it's like, you know, they do like claircognizant, clairaudient, clairvoyant, different things. You know, I can do some different fun picking options for you guys. Just let me know. I'm open to any suggestions or comments, just as I was open to the many different things that the spirit guides wanted me to do with this one. And yeah, I hope you guys have an absolutely stellar day, and that I wish you just like a lot of like love and support as you go through this healing journey, because it's always difficult when we deal with kind of like, you know, like these harder aspects. So take care, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.